A sudden sense of inner peace after prolonged hardship is one of the most subtle yet profound ways Allah signals that a test is drawing to a close. This peace does not always coincide with a visible change in circumstances. The problems may still exist outwardly, the situation may remain unresolved on the surface, yet the heart undergoes a quiet transformation. The weight that once pressed heavily on the chest loosens, and the constant inner turmoil softens into stillness. This peace is not self-manufactured. It arrives unannounced, without effort, and often surprises the one experiencing it. After months or years of emotional strain, fear, and uncertainty, the heart suddenly rests. That rest itself is a sign. It indicates that Allah has carried the servant through the most intense portion of the trial and has now granted a form of mercy that allows the soul to breathe again. This inner peace is deeply spiritual in nature. It is not rooted in logic or external reassurance, because often there is none. Instead, it comes from tawakkul settling firmly into the heart. Where there was once a constant questioning of outcomes, a silent trust takes its place. The mind no longer races through worst-case scenarios, and the heart stops bracing itself for impact. Even if the test has not fully lifted, the servant feels held rather than abandoned. This sense of being spiritually protected marks a turning point. Allah is showing that the heart has been strengthened enough to no longer be shaken by the same fear. The test may have begun as a storm, but it ends with calm seas within, even if the sky has not fully cleared. Inner peace after hardship also reflects a purification process that has reached completion. Trials are not only about endurance, they are about refinement. Through difficulty, attachments are stripped away, false dependencies are broken, and the heart is redirected toward Allah alone. When the heart finally accepts this reality, not with resignation but with sincerity, peace descends naturally. The struggle against reality ends, resistance dissolves. The servant is no longer fighting the test, but walking through it with composure. That surrender is not defeat, it is elevation. Allah grants tranquility as a reward for patience, signaling that the lesson has been learned and the soul has matured through the experience. Closely tied to this inner peace is the experience of relief that comes without warning. Unlike relief that follows clear progress or visible success, this type arrives suddenly and quietly. There is no dramatic announcement, no immediate external change to point to as the cause. One day, the burden simply feels lighter. The heart notices that it can breathe again. Tears that once came from despair now come from release. This kind of relief often catches the servant off guard because it was not anticipated. After long periods of waiting, the soul may even have stopped expecting relief altogether. When it arrives unexpectedly, it carries a distinct signature of divine intervention. Unexpected relief teaches an essential spiritual truth. Allah is not bound by timelines, patterns, or human expectation. When relief is delayed, it is not because Allah is unaware or withholding without purpose. It is because the moment of relief must align with wisdom, not urgency. When relief finally arrives without warning, it reinforces that Allah was always in control, even when nothing appeared to be moving. This realization deepens faith far more than relief that arrives exactly when expected. It shifts the servant's understanding of reliance from conditional trust to absolute trust. Sudden relief also functions as emotional closure. Prolonged tests often leave the heart in a state of constant vigilance, always anticipating the next wave of pain. When Allah removes that anticipation, even temporarily, it signals safety. The heart recognizes that it no longer needs to stay on guard. What once felt like rejection is reinterpreted as redirection. The pain of waiting gains meaning, and the heart finds peace in the realization that Allah's delays were never denials, but precise placements in a larger plan. Closely connected to this is the experience of ease replacing constant difficulty. Tests often condition the soul to expect hardship as the default state. When difficulty stretches on, the servant may begin to believe that struggle is permanent, that ease is reserved for others, or that relief is always conditional and fragile. When Allah begins to replace difficulty with ease, it often happens gradually, almost gently, so the servant does not immediately notice the shift. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Emotional reactions soften. Situations that once triggered fear no longer carry the same intensity. Life begins to flow again. This transition into ease is not merely circumstantial, it is deeply internal. Allah does not simply remove hardship, He changes how the servant experiences life. The same responsibilities may remain, but they no longer crush the spirit. The same environment may exist, but it no longer suffocates the heart. Ease shows up as emotional resilience, mental clarity, and spiritual stability. The servant realizes they are no longer operating in survival mode. There is room to think, to plan, to hope, and to rest. This ease is a sign that Allah has lifted the heaviest spiritual weight of the test. Ease after difficulty also serves confirmation that patience was accepted. During hardship, patience is often imperfect. There may have been moments of complaint, doubt, or emotional collapse. Allah does not require flawless patience. He requires sincerity. When ease arrives, it reassures the servant that their effort to remain connected, even when they struggled, was seen and valued. This eases lingering guilt or self-blame. The servant understands that growth is not about never breaking, but about returning to Allah each time they do. Importantly, the ease that replaces difficulty does not erase memory of the struggle. Instead, it reframes it. The servant carries forward a deeper appreciation for small blessings, a sharper awareness of dependence on Allah, and a softer heart toward others who are struggling. Ease becomes a teacher rather than a distraction. It does not make the servant forget Allah. It makes them more conscious of Him. They recognize that just as difficulty was not permanent, neither is ease, and this awareness anchors them in gratitude rather than complacency. Together, the opening of a door after complete closure and the replacement of constant difficulty with each mark a shift from endurance to restoration. Allah is not only removing the test, He is repairing what it strained. The servant steps into a new phase of life with greater humility, deeper trust, and a clearer understanding of divine wisdom. These signs do not announce themselves loudly, but their impact is unmistakable. The heart knows when something has changed, when the atmosphere of life feels lighter, and when Allah has begun to lead the servant out of hardship and to mercy. The answering of DU, letter 2BF, a macron, letter 2Bs, in unexpected ways is one of the most spiritual formative signs that Allah is bringing a test toward completion. During prolonged hardship, due letter 2B, emacron letter 2B often becomes desperate, repetitive, and emotionally charged. The servant may ask for one specific outcome, one clear solution, or one exact change, believing that relief can only come through that single avenue. When Allah answers due letter 2 with emacron letter 2B in a way the servant did not anticipate, it gently corrects this narrow expectation. The answer may not resemble the original request at all, yet it addresses the deeper need behind it. A prayer for removal of pain may be answered with strength to endure, wisdom to understand, or peace that neutralizes the pain's power. This kind of response reveals that Allah was listening not only to the words spoken, but to the condition of the heart. Unexpected answers reshape the servant's relationship with DU, letter 2 Vakan, letter 2B itself. Instead of seeing it as a transaction, ask and receive exactly what was requested. The servant begins to understand it as a form of trust. DU letter 2B, a macron letter 2 becomes an act of surrender, placing the outcome in Allah's hands without dictating how it must appear. When the answer comes differently, yet perfectly timed, the servant realizes that Allah's wisdom surpasses their own vision. This realization is deeply humbling and deeply comforting at the same time. It signals that the test has served its purpose in refining reliance and expanding spiritual awareness. Another powerful sign of a test nearing its end is the removal of anxiety from the heart. Anxiety during hardship often feels relentless. It manifests as constant worry, mental loops, fear of the future, and an inability to rest even when physically exhausted. When Allah begins to lift this anxiety, the change can feel almost unreal. The same thoughts may arise, but they no longer grip the heart. The future no longer feels like a threat. The body relaxes, breathing deepens, and the mind becomes quieter. This shift is not achieved through effort alone. It is granted. The removal of anxiety reflects a deep internal shift in trust. The servant no longer feels the need to control every outcome or anticipate every danger. There is an underlying confidence that whatever comes will be manageable because Allah is present in it. This does not mean the servant becomes careless or indifferent. Rather, fear loses its dominance. Anxiety had once been a constant companion during the test, but now it fades, indicating that the soul has learned to rest in divine protection. Allah is showing that the heart has reached a level of reliance that no longer requires constant alarm. This relief from anxiety also allows the servant to re-engage with life. During intense tests, anxiety narrows perception. Joy feels unsafe, stillness feels dangerous, and peace feels temporary. When anxiety lifts, the servant can once again be present. They can enjoy small moments without guilt or fear of loss. This return to presence is a sign of healing. It shows that the test is no longer actively wounding the heart. Instead, the heart is recovering, regaining balance, and rediscovering its natural state of calm under Allah's care. Together, the unexpected answering of DU, a letter to you, and the removal of anxiety indicate that Allah has addressed the root of the test, not just its surface symptoms. The servant no longer needs the test to continue because the lesson has been absorbed. Trust has replaced desperation and calm has replaced fear. The heart, once burdened and restless, now carries quiet confidence. This transformation signals that Allah's mercy has overtaken the trial, guiding the servant gently out of hardship and instability.